So Mark here from Rock and Load, and today I've got the absolute pleasure of being joined by an old bud, Oli Brown, who's now kicking off his new project, Oli Brown and the Dead Collective. Ex Oli Brown, ex RavenEye, now Oli Brown. But let's all find out what's happening, kids. We're all down to know. We're all down to know. So Oli, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. I like that I'm ex Oli Brown as
I
well.
know. Yeah, I know. You have to throw it in there.
I'm ex me.
So yeah, like man, what a crazy few years. Been a while since we've seen each other. Actually, I can't even remember when you were last in Northern Ireland.
Um, was it that it was a festival, wasn't it? Was it the
Sunflower.
Sunflower
Yeah,
Festival?
because I was trying to remember, was it the Empire gig or was it the Sunflower? But it must have been the Sunflower.
I think it was Sunflower. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's a long while ago.
yeah. It does. It feels like a lifetime ago, and I think the problem as well with the last few years is trying to put your finger on a time stamp on things
Yeah,
because it's just been a blur, hasn't it?
yeah. It's a bit surreal, isn't it? I think we're all a bit like, was that last year? No, it definitely wasn't
Yeah,
last year. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like we've all had like the Avengers click, like the blink, where we've all kind of disappeared from the world for like a year or two.
Exactly. Yeah, it's beyond surreal.
Yeah.
So listen, man, let's cover a little bit of your history. I can't even remember if we've ever really talked about this ourselves, but tell me, like, from whenever you decided to pick up the guitar, what age were you, and what got you into it in the first place?
Yeah, I was 12 when I started playing. Like I think I was kind of bored in school and it was a Jimi Hendrix advert for no, it wasn't. It was an Audi advert playing Jimi Hendrix's song all
Yeah,
along the
yeah,
Watchtower. And it just was I don't know, I think at that point I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to play guitar because my dad's always played guitar when I was growing up. And I think at that I wasn't really that interested in it. I think it was more just annoying for us when we were leaving because he would always sing on his guitar before we'd be leaving the house. And we're like, come on, do you want to go? But then it was that Hendrix advert, and the Audi advert, and I got the greatest hits compilation. It was like a 2 disc thing, which had like live audio, live like stolen footage and stuff, and then all the kind of hits, I guess. And
yeah.
I just absolutely fell in love with him, and he's totally the reason why I'm here now.
Yeah, so the reason why so many people are here now, and like even today, as an artist and as a brand, Jimi Hendrix is still so relevant. Like his music.
Yeah, it's surreal. It feels he's just one of those kind of untangible artists where it just no one's ever really sounded like him. You know, obviously people imitate him, but it's like, you know how
Yeah,
some people kind of inspire a genre of music and a style of sound.
yeah,
He's not done that. He's kind of stayed in his own bubble of just like that's just Hendrix's space. It's like you can't really touch it. You
yeah,
can't really, I guess like John Mayer touches a little bit on some of his stuff, and in Continuum he did "Bold as Love," which is a Hendrix song. Like he does occasionally tickle into the Hendrix vibes, but he's just his own genre, and he's just unreal. I still have just the most utmost love and respect for
yeah.
Hendrix's music.
I think as well, maybe the fact that we lost him at such a young age, and that we never really knew what he was going to go on to beyond what he'd left us with. Only a couple of albums, and
Yeah, and it's just like they keep finding songs that were demos and that they've released again. Like there's a on my CD, there's a "Hey Baby" brackets "The House of the New Rising Sun" or something like that, and it's
yeah,
I love that track, and clearly it was the first vocal take because he's going on the vocal thing like, oh hey, is this mic on before the thing, and then he just nails it, and I love that song. I don't know, and they keep finding all these like old demos, I guess, that then they're putting them together and still keeping his legacy alive.
yeah, absolutely. And like so many musicians as well, obviously, so many people are aware of Hendrix as a guitar player, and obviously the big songs and all the things, but such a story and such a struggle to actually get to where he got to in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
And as with so many musicians, that people just never realize that they always look at the end result, the end product, and think that they're
Yeah, well, it's like at the end of the day, like you hear the song, but the amount of journey that goes into every song to be written, there's a huge story behind it.
yeah,
And some
absolutely,
people love sharing that, and some people don't. And I guess it can take away your interpretation of a song as well. Like some people,
yeah,
and I totally understand why some people don't want to give too much detail because you you don't want to ruin someone's relationship with the song all of a sudden when you make it too literal. I think that's the
yeah.
joy of metaphor is, people get to, interpret art the way that they, makes them feel.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So obviously, you picked up the guitar. You're saying roughly in your early teens. What age were
Yeah.
you then? Whenever you started sort of professionally gigging and sort of aiming for a career in music?
Probably when I was 16, I got really lucky. I got invited to tour with an American band for about 2 months. It was just under 2 months, and they're a band called Blind Dog Smoking, and it was proper blues band. And they just made me work every night. Like, we were playing dirty blues bars, really sketchy bars in, like Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, like proper Central America, and just I cut my teeth there. And every night after every gig, they would sit down and give me new challenges to do at the next show. Like, they were really watching how I was standing. So one of the first things was like, you got to stop shuffling your feet on stage, and they're saying, you got to walk, because at that point I was really tiny. I was really short, super skinny, and they said, like, you're kind of hunched over and shuffling your feet, and you're meant to be
hiding behind the guitar.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, you're meant to be performing, you're meant to bring a show to people are coming to be entertained and led by you. So they really grafted me hard every gig, and it was I as much as I appreciated it, I like even more so now. Like, I understand the lessons even more so, and and just the amount of time they took to out of their kind of gigging schedule and their lives to educate me is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was just so incredible. Like, I learned so much from it. And I think, it was sleeping on floors. We had this rickety tour bus. It was players called Bobby Rush. It was his old tour bus, and it was no aircon. We're in Central America in the middle of summer, sweating out, like just dripping wet between every show. And it was, he definitely said at one point that because we were going between the Rockies as well. He said at one point the handbrake wasn't quite working, so he thought we were all going to die, which is really great.
Comforting.
Yeah, but that was it. And then it was just at the end of that whole run, it was the lead singer Carl Gustafsson and Roland Pritzker, the bass player. They both sat me down in this cafe and explained to me, one, that I need to start singing. They said I had to start singing. I need to come out as a solo artist first. I need to be owning my own band and being Oli Brown as the artist and sing and write my songs. So they really pushed that ethos down into me and really took it very seriously. And I think that's when they made me realize, okay, yeah, I'm good at this. This is where my calling is. I need to kind of step up, and they've given me so much of their time, and I've absorbed it all and took as much from it. But now it's my turn to kind of take the reins.
Yeah. And so when you joined that project, sorry, you were on that wee tour, were you just there as a guitar player initially?
Yeah, just all I wanted to do was play guitar. I never wanted to sing. Yeah, I hated the idea of singing. I think I did one high school singing thing where we had like a school project where we had to do this thing, and I think we sung about our school teachers, about being like in certain football teams. I can't remember. All I remember is one of the lyrics is "teachers are all the same," but I remember being horrible. I remember absolutely hating. I didn't want to sing it. The guys that was with, everyone convinced me to sing, and I hated it. And I think that just gave me a very bitter taste towards singing, and I never wanted to sing again. So I was like, I'm just going to play guitar.
Yeah. Comfort zone, hide behind it, as you say, and just get lost in the music.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so 2008, you dropped your first album. So between that period of working with those guys and getting that sort of sit down and talk to and telling you which direction you had to go, what sort of time frame is that then between that?
That was probably about, I had 2 years of turnaround, really. So I kind of finished the US tour when I was 16, and then just started going to lots of jam nights again. I always went to jam nights because they were just great experience and good fun. It's a good, you go boots, you go on stage, you play a few songs, and it's just I love that. And then that's where I kind of searched for my band as well. So I kind of hunted for players that I thought I had a good connection with, that could really accelerate me. And I just wrote as much as I could, and with the knowledge I had, which I think I'd love to have worked with a writer earlier on, so kind of understand more about songwriting, because I think at that point I was more interested in accelerating guitar solos, and I think my voice at that point, I was using it more as a means to an end. It's like, well, I've got to put a voice on something. So a lot of the earlier stuff was more like yelling, which is great, but I didn't have anyone kind of crafting or kind of making me have an understanding of the power of the voice, because behind every amazing guitar solo is an incredible song. There's no one goes, oh, that guitar solo is amazing, to a song that's at a pants. Like, it's
you don't listen to the song if it's shit.
Like, one of my favorite solos of all time is Sultans of Swing, but that whole song is just ridiculous. Like, it's incredible. And the guitar playing throughout, like, all the extra rhythm parts set you up for the tension for that solo to really kind of give you the payoff. And so I think at that point I was writing because I knew I had to, and I think at that point it was just whatever was kind of coming out, and crafting it, but completely at that point by myself.
I'd say, like, I always wonder about an awful lot of guitarists who especially start young, that frustration level of, obviously, as you say, it's like you want the guitar to be the main focus of your guitar player, and you want to write all those amazing solos and stuff like that. And there is that discipline of trying to learn the songwriting and the craft and hone your craft. But it must be incredibly frustrating being young. And there's probably so many barriers for a young artist as well, because the industry and maybe aren't accepting of you, aren't there to support you properly, aren't ready for you.
I think I got kind of that definitely was the case in some senses, but I think I got quite lucky. Like, I had good tours, and there was a good reaction to it all. I think any platform where you expose yourself as an artist or as a figurehead of some kind, I think you're opening yourself up to criticism and opening yourself up to negativity, because you're putting your art out there. So it's going to have an opinion whether people like you, like the music, like the guitar playing. And I think at that point, I've always been really good at not getting too affected by it. Just because what the fuck can I do it? Sorry, I don't know if I could swear. So what can I do? What can I do about it? And I'm really good at just switching that off. I think there's a difference between massively, obviously, between negativity and constructive and criticism. And I think I understand the difference. So I think that was something that I really took on very well from the Blind Dog guys, the American band. They were so educational in their criticism. They pushed me in the directions that I could go, right, I don't feel too good about that, but they're right. I need to step up. And I think because I had that from such a young age, and it was relentless, I think it really grounded me, but also gave me a level head of knowing my worth. So when you're having some people saying, oh, he's too young to be singing like that, I'm like, well, what? I don't care. I'm gonna, especially at that point, I was writing, my songs by myself. This is from my head, so clearly I'm feeling this in some kind of way. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not.
I think there's not maybe too much made of the whole, especially when it comes to blues. You have to live it to really understand it, sort of thing, because as a good songwriter, you can convey this, whether through guitar playing or through vocals or emotive songwriting.
It's emotion. It's heart. We've all got a heart, and obviously there's different levels. There's a lot going on in the blues communities of what your background and where you're meant to be, and I think you can take the genre however you like, but like every other genre in the world evolves and changes. It's doesn't have to be so limited. It's like rock it's not just rock, is it? It's every kind of platforms and things. And I feel like sometimes blues feels like it has to be in this little box, and there's so many. There's nothing wrong by being influenced with it and taking it into your own. And I think it definitely becomes a bit precious sometimes. And I think for me, I wasn't trained to be anything other than just writing how I feel, and that's it. Blues is a feeling, in my opinion, and that's where I connect with it, and that's the music I grew up with, and the band that I toured with that told me everything I should be doing, and I got to watch them on a daily basis on how to perform and the songs they were writing, and I was like, well, I want to do this. I'm not saying at that point at the time when I was some of the earlier songs, like there's a song Open Road, it was just about me wanting to just get back to America and do what I was doing again. Trying like Roxanne was just me about having a crush on a girl back then. Like at that point in time, all of those things were just genuine things for me, not anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And you released sort of 3 albums, studio albums anyway, as a solo artist, and then a live album. So how did you feel yourself, the progression as a guitar player and as a songwriter over that period?
I think in terms of songwriting, I definitely progressed as I went on. So when I did Heads I Win, Tails You Lose, the second record, I worked with a producer called Mike Vernon, and he really started kind of making me realize the difference between actually good songwriting and just writing songs. So we wrote a song. I went over to his place in Spain to just do some more songwriting, and he wants to produce a bit, so he'd get his hands a bit more on all the songs to understand them a bit more. And I brought the song called Speechless, and it had completely different lyrics. It was just originally in my head, I was like, right, I'm going to write lyrics first and then write the music. He heard it back. He's like, yeah, no, the lyrics are awful. We're completely redoing them. So, okay, fair enough. So we sat down and just penned all the lyrics out together and reworked some of the melodies. And I was like, oh, okay. It starts like the synapses start connecting in your head and going, okay, this is starting to make sense. And I think that's when I started appreciating it more. Even with Heads I Win, Tails You Lose, I wasn't really confident as a singer. I didn't believe in my voice so much. I was still feeling like I just want to get guitar solos down. So I think there was still that inner conflict of, yes, I want to write wicked songs. Yeah, but guitar solos, like, go away, song, like, let me rip off some wicked guitar solos. So I think he started planting that seed. And then when it came to the third record, Here I Am, I was working with a good friend of mine who's actually with the new project as well, Wayne Proctor. And he was the one that just really kind of forced me to really pay attention to the songwriting. And then we started crafting a lot more and really paying attention. Then he started opening my eyes up to the minutiae of songwriting. And when you listen to the detail of like the good songs, the amount that goes into them, it's not just a verse, chorus, middle eight, chorus out. Like some of the, we really got to the greater details of it.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started digging into songwriting and then started enjoying singing more. I started using it as more of a tool in my kind of assets. And there was a song called I Love You More Than You Ever Know, where we spent the whole day doing the vocal take. So I wanted to be a better singer at that point. So we spent a lot more time trying to get the right vocal takes and got a nice mic in and a unit to really, I guess, like make me feel a bit more like a singer than a guitarist. So there was definitely more of a transition. And I think in my own headspace as well, there were beginning to be conflicts between, directions and opinions. And I was like, well, I want to take more control. I want to stay true to me. So that's when, Here I Am is a slightly different record than the previous two, as I started kind of finding my own voice and fingers, I guess.
Yeah. I remember that when that album dropped, actually, when I heard it as well, I thought that was a massive shift from what had been done before,
Yeah.
It just seemed so much more mature as an all-around artist, between even guitar playing, like some of your solo work, and that was really, really beautiful on it,
Thanks, Matt. Well, that one, I wrote guitar solos for that album as well. So I sat down and I spent every solo on that record, and still some of my favorite solos, like Manic Bloom is still one of my favorite solos I've recorded, because I remember sitting down at the house we were in temporarily, and I had it all on voice memos, and I was working on the parts, and I work on the next section. I'm like, okay, I think I've got this section. So I voice memo my next phone, the next bit, and then started piecing it all together. And I finally got that complete solo. I was like, this is, I'm really glad I did that, because that was something Wayne told me, that, look at don't have to improvise everything. Sometimes you can write a solo, like even to the point Hendrix wrote guitar solos for his records as well. It's not all just, energy. Sometimes,
it's crazy the way different people work. I don't know if you watched did you watch the Bonamassa DVD at all? Guitar Man, about his work?
No, I haven't.
And there's a wee section just of Kevin Shirley and him in the studio, when he's laying down solos for songs. I think Kevin doesn't even tell him sometimes what song's coming on. Just gives him like a bar and he says, like, go, you're in D or whatever, and he just has to rip into it. But horses for courses when it comes to recording music, I suppose, how people need to be challenged and pushed, I suppose.
Totally. I think it's good to kind of, I guess, challenge yourself. I think what can happen when you're recording guitar solos is you can get in a pattern of, you get a solo down, you do a few, and then you start getting your head around it. So then you start kind of doing the same ideas. And sometimes what you can do is you can, like, the creative journey of the solo and the excitingness starts drifting away the more you do, the more takes you do. So it's an interesting way of doing it, is just whatever song, right, go for it. I mean, it's a wicked way of as someone of Joe's caliber, you can kind of pull that off with,
absolutely. It's not going to work for everyone. It wouldn't work for me.
No, but a good producer can, recognize what works best for their artist, and it's a really fun thing. Like we're working with producing an artist called Toby Lee at the moment, and he's just an insane guitar player, absolutely insane guitar player. He's one of those guys that you hit record, you get a completely different solo every time, and it's ace. It's really exciting, and we're at that moment now. We're just nudging him on the songwriting side and kind of trying to encourage that earlier on, so we can really get the balance in check, so that like the songs have got as much weight as possible, because his guitar playing is flawless, it's spotless. So it's like, right, let's bring you up more as an artist earlier.
Very good, very good. And so tell me then, obviously you dropped your third album, Here I Am. You obviously had the live album as well. Somewhere at that point then you made this conscious decision you wanted to go a different direction, and RavenEye was born. So like, how did that come around?
I think because Here I Am had a bit of a mixed reaction. I think some people enjoyed it, some people were like, what's happened? And like, who is he? And I was like, so it was a bit frustrating at that point, because I don't know why, but people, I think, always seem to have this thing in their head that an artist is being led by other people, and it's not always the case. Maybe just the artist is changing. And I think people are like, oh, whoever's getting involved is doing, they're making do this. Like, you don't have to do this. You can do what you want. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing what I want. Like, I'm good. And I think at that point, it just was getting progressively messier. So I kind of did like an Etch-a-Sketch and moved to Toronto for a couple of years to work with fresh management, and just sat down with the guitar pretty much every day and just sang with an acoustic. We had this little PA downstairs, and I just sang and played acoustic pretty much every day, and kind of remapped everything, and kind of, I guess, got my headspace in a bit of a healthier spot. As I think I realized that I wasn't really as in control as much as I was craving to be. I always find that my songwriting, my subconscious songwriting, is always far more ahead of my conscious state of mind. I think I'm always writing about what I'm feeling rather than thinking about what I'm feeling. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So at that point, I started writing for the next blues record, essentially. And I had a week before going to the studio, and I was like, right, I'm going to just lock myself away and just and commit to myself to writing 5 songs within this week. And it was definitely the grubbiest time of my life. I didn't do anything. I pretty much just slept on a couch by had a little computer set up in a room, and I just wrote as much as possible, and just didn't do anything else. Ordered food in. I was a gross wreck, I think. But through that came a song called Breaking Out, and at that point we were going to studio. We finally went into, it was just outside New Orleans, to record the album, and I was discussing about recording all the songs, and I played them Breaking Out, and I was like, I can't record this song because it's wrong for the audience. And then, actually, in fairness, the team there, the guys were like, yeah, no, you should definitely record this song. Put this song down, worry about releasing it afterwards, but you should record this song. And then that really planted the seed. I finished the record, and it was a 10-track album that was meant to go out as Oli Brown. And then I moved back to the UK, just to change things again. I still wasn't quite settled in my headspace of who I am, like what I'm really doing. I'm still struggling with that at that point in time. And when I listened to the record again, I was like, oh, hold on, there's a few tracks here that feel like there could be something different. And I'm tired of really everything being pointed towards me. I really don't want to just be on my own again, like for another, I was already felt very isolated, I think, as a solo artist, and I wanted to kind of be with a band. I wanted to work with a team of guys that have got more creative input, and I feel like I can get behind that, or also get behind me, rather than using me as an identity to leverage getting stuff. I don't know, it just got a bit odd. So that's when I decided to do the band, and completely Etch-a-Sketched. I didn't want any management, any agencies, anyone. I wanted to work it from the ground up, and use Breaking Out as the foundation of it. So Breaking Out was really the first thing. I contacted this YouTuber called Frankie on PC, and he put Breaking Out on his video, on his YouTube video, where he's like, it's like an army game. He was shooting people and stuff like that, and it came on the end of the game, and everyone was like, "What's this song? Like, this is ridiculous!" And it went. He didn't tell me he was going to post it, so then all of a sudden I rushed to put it on SoundCloud and put it for sale. Because I'm like, shit, it's got like 1 million views, and I'm like panicking and stuff. And it did really well for giving our presence like a proper boost around everything. And then I announced RavenEye, and just started working for the ground up again. I didn't want anyone involved that I was previously involved with, because I felt like anyone pre RavenEye knew Oli Brown from a 17-year-old blues guitarist, and I felt like they didn't really understand the change of dynamic and the change of my headspace as well.
Yeah. Well, like a couple of years is such a long time in anybody's life, but especially in those younger years, you know, you develop so much, you know, and as you say, musical taste and maybe even just capabilities as a musician as well. Just you want to push yourself and you want to express yourself differently.
Yeah, totally. And I think at that point, because I had just full reign to just do whatever I wanted, I really just did that. I went back, and I knew it could have been dangerous, and there was a lot of negativity towards the move when I announced RavenEye. You know, even to the point it was mentioned in a magazine that I turned my back on the blues scene, and it was frustrating because it's like, well, I don't owe anyone anything. Like, I've created 3 albums and a live album. I'm just trying out different ventures. Like, no one, it was surreal at the time. I'm like, I'm not turning my back. Like, I've not named it Oli Brown and then just all of a sudden start doing like, right, follow right music. It's RavenEye. It's a completely different entity. I'm not saying goodbye to the Oli Brown thing, but I'm saying that, here's a change, here's something different. Don't want to confuse you all. So here's a completely different band name with different music. But for some reason, I think people can get so precious with it. And it just got very odd. And, I was having phone calls of people saying that it's never going to work and it's not going to happen. I'm making a big mistake. And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I want to make the mistake. I'm not happy. I want to do this because I think it will work. And we got very lucky early on with an opportunity to go on tour with Slash, because his management was breaking out that track, and they said, oh, and Slash is really hands-on with picking his bands, and he was like, oh, let's bring them on for a few shows in Europe. And then when we announced that, all of a sudden people started taking it more seriously.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like you touched on yourself there. I remember speaking to you guys, but you were so DIY, so hands-on with the whole thing. Like every aspect of it, from 24/7. You guys were just sort of doing anything you could to drive that band forward. It was mad time.
Yeah, I loved it, man. Like, I had a whole plan of, I think I get visions of things about how I really see them, and I'm like, okay, well, if it's going to be RavenEye, then we need to be doing this. So we had like a whole schedule kind of organized and figuring out like what can we do to kind of make this a bit more interesting and a bit more unique. And I just had this whole thing in my head of how we're going to do this and why I want it to be this way. And I think at that point, you could see other bands kind of starting to do it a bit more. And I'm like, well, let's do like a street team. Let's do something where we offer like t-shirts and give them some cool stuff on the side. Let's sort out a social media kind of schedule. So we started using a scheduling program at first, but then we were like, well, this isn't quite organic or natural for us. Like, we're doing stuff all the time. We're pretty much living together. So let's just do as much as we can and just trying ideas out and keeping it as honest. I think we were all goofballs, and I think we realized that we couldn't really be the rock and roll, like, grumpy dudes and really serious. We were just like, well, let's just have fun with it and let that be the our selling point.
Yeah.
Dog that's going mental in the background.
He's gone, don't tell him too much, Ollie, don't tell him too much.
Yeah. I think he's trying to warn me the postman's here.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like the RavenEye, as a beautiful project as it wasn't without its struggles as well. And even just from an outsider speaking to you guys, as far as, just the graft that you had to put in and the challenges, as 3 young musicians trying to make it work. Like, Jesus, talk about there's barriers thrown at you left, right, and center to try and you just wanted to get out there, play live music, record music, but challenges upon challenges.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I think like we kept it very in-house for a long time as well. Like, it's always really just the 3 of us touring as well. Like, we'd do rotas for traveling in the van, and we'd all exchange sleeping in the van, and like, we had a whole rota around us as well. And I think, like, I mean, man, we had just the most ridiculous opportunities, but I think there were just a few letdowns, and especially even towards the last record that it isn't out yet.
Yeah.
But we had quite a few bumps in the roads with getting it done. There was originally a company behind it, and we were like, right, cool, we've got this budget to go into studio, so we recorded at Mono Valley, which is wicked, but not cheap. But we didn't want to keep any money for ourselves at that point. We're like, well, let's put the money into the record to get the best thing out there, and it just didn't work out at all. The label fell through. So we didn't, we ended up having to front it all ourselves, the cost of everything, and that was disheartening. And then the mixes weren't really working out. Like, I think when we wrote a lot of songs, as like me as well, like I just would sit at home by myself and just write as many ideas as possible. And I had a really clear sound in mind where I'm like, okay, I want the record to sound like this. And just the mixes weren't coming out right. And then again, we tried something else and it just still didn't really have the sound that I wanted. I'm like, I know what if I just spend a bit of time away from my music and just mix a few other things and dig things in a bit more, I know I can get this record to sound the way I want it to. So I ended up mixing the album myself and taking over the record myself, and Adam sat with me as well, and we just I had a clear vision of what we wanted the record to sound like, and it's mixed, it's finished, but we're just, in terms of figuring out a release plan, like when lockdown came in, and really at this point in time, I don't know if we're really realistically we can really be touring it. We will tour again at this point.
Yeah. So for clarification then, so like what is the state of play with RavenEye today then? Is it just hiatus at the moment until?
I think it's lights out for RavenEye at the moment. Like I'd love to say it's not, but being realistic about it, it's taken its toll on my headspace, and over the last few years and pre-lockdown as well. There's a lot of things, especially with the record kind of getting to that point and then it not, just kind of hurdles kind of knocking over, and I think it got a bit overwhelming, I think. And I'd love to be able to release the album, but it's confusing at this point in time and figuring out the right way to do it. And I don't know if I can really, for my own headspace and own mental health, I don't know if I can really stomach digging in again to something that I feel like's taken the life out of me the last few years and really kind of turned me off music entirely.
Yeah. And then obviously you were saying, like, obviously that's got to be tough enough, because I can only imagine what it's like, obviously putting your heart and soul into everything 24/7 as you guys were doing, to keep on hitting those brick walls and challenges. And then obviously the pandemic came just as you were trying to sort all that out as well.
Yeah. Pandemic was, it was crap for everyone, really. It's like, it's a hard thing to really, we all were in the same boat in that sense. We all went through it. And I think, to be honest, at first I almost found the pandemic a bit of a blessing, that I'm like, oh, I can just relax. Like I don't have to worry about touring. I don't have to worry about stuff. So like the first month or so, I was like, oh, maybe this is, this means that we can get all our stuff in place and get things figured out. And realistically, it just meant that nothing would happen for a long period of time. And then it's keeping social media engaged, and there were some things in the background that were just getting worse and worse and messier, and it was like, yeah, this is really getting worse, and I'm trying to hang on to it, and just and at that point I was unaware about how much damage it was really causing me, and what it was doing to my health.
Yeah. And when did you sort of start to realize that really it was taking a toll on you?
Probably at it was probably like around August last year. August last year was when I realized that I couldn't. At that point, I think I realized I just wanted to step away from it all. At that point, I had a bad anxiety attack, and it went a little bit further than the previous ones I've had. And I think at that point I realized that I needed to just shut everything down, and I needed to get help, because I previously tried, and I should have taken it more seriously when I had the first anxiety attack, and then I started realizing only through therapy that really, which the list of problems that I'm not really resolving in my own head, and then realizing what's, I think what the great thing about a good therapist is that, they help you see things in a way that you've never really, imagined seeing them, and they help make sense of it. And you're like, okay, yeah, you're right. I probably do need to like make some changes. And so really it was from then, and then I just kind of started drifting myself away from music.
Yeah. And would you say that you had the sort of anxiety issues over a number of years, but you just never really faced it or addressed it, or was it more recent in the past number of years?
I think I don't really know. I think the first anxiety issue I had was October the year before, not last year, but the year
2020.
before. Yeah. And at that point I had no idea what an anxiety attack was. Yeah. I remember we called the ambulance because I thought I remember like we had no idea what was going on, and it's not really something that's ever run in my family, or like, all my family's ever discussed. So just at that point I'm like, I'm done. I thought I was dying. To be honest. So it was just scary at the time, and that's when I went to the GP to go to doctors to say, look, I had this. I have no idea what happened. The doctor was absolutely, I'm livid at it now. I think the doctor, she was appalling. I think she just looked like I showed her a magic trick, that she had no idea what was going on. She just like head to the side and like just gave me a piece of toilet paper with a number to call, and I called them. And I think because I didn't answer questions, I think because I felt foolish then for going to the doctor, when I did the call for the NHS to say like, yeah, okay, I need help. I think because I didn't understand the severity of where my headspace was, and because I didn't explain it enough, I think I put it down. I got put in a waiting list. And then when I put in the waiting list, I was like, I don't need to bother with this. And then I didn't take care of it. And I think that was my first warning sign that I should have from then taken care of it. And I left it way too late. And, I'm just, grateful that the other anxiety attack was a lot worse, and I eventually calmed down, but that's when I realized that I should have taken it a lot more seriously a lot earlier on.
And were you able to get help at that point in a reasonable time frame? Because people do talk an awful lot of the problems trying to access services to help people with anxiety or needing therapy, for example.
I went private.
Yeah.
I saved up money and went private because the waiting list was still too long, and I didn't want to wait anymore. And I was nervous about really like, because when you obviously get put on someone, I'm like, I don't know how long, is it going to be like a 20-minute phone call? And then because there was possibilities with me over the phone, I'm like, no, I need to see someone. Like, I have no idea what the hell's going on in my head. And I went online and did a few like searches for good therapists, and just trying to figure out what kind of therapy I wanted, because they say like CBT, or there's hypnotherapy, there's all these kind of different ones. And I just found this one company that just didn't really, she wasn't really specified in one thing. So I didn't know what I wanted. So I didn't really want to pick, CBT therapy or
pigeonhole yourself in case it wasn't right.
Yeah. So I met up with her, and that was like, okay, yeah, great. But I didn't want to wait. I think I had it within the week then. And I continue to now. I'm just booking the next sessions now as well. And I think realize it's just part of self-care. I'd rather put my money into that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you sort of said, I'm sure it's opened your eyes to a lot of things. And are you feeling more grounded now then?
Yeah, I do actually. I think I have better tools to manage anything, manage the situations, and I have more awareness of it.
Yeah,
I think it's still a bit I think a lot's changed since then for me, in terms of just I wouldn't let myself get in this kind of situations again, and I have better people around me, and a better support system, and a better awareness of it for myself to take care. I can't just rely on other people, but I realize the right people around you can make a huge difference.
Yeah, very much so. I was funny because actually last night at the Battle of the Bands, I was talking to a team down there called Metal for Life in Northern Ireland, which is a mental health charity, and it's run by a couple who lost their son back in 2017 to suicide. He was actually a member of a band who took part in the Metal to the Masses back then. They won the competition and went to Bloodstock, but shortly after, like, he took his own life, and they were just obviously devastated by this, but equally then went on this path of setting up this because they realized, especially within, say, rock and metal music, even though it's quite a small niche thing, there's quite a demand for people who just feel isolated and feel outside of the bigger picture in society, because obviously, you know, everybody has their little cliques that they sort of stick within, and you know, somebody in the metal community maybe wouldn't feel like they're part of the broader picture and wouldn't feel comfortable accessing NHS or talking to people, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy, it's such a big issue today, and it's so prevalent, obviously, as well. And the importance of just, as they said themselves, obviously just finding people to talk to, having the right people around you, and recognizing that there is support, and that the first step is obviously just talking, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I'm very grateful I got lucky enough to, you know, want to be able to go private in the first place, and you know, it was worth selling shit for, and but I'm lucky I did it, and it is a hard thing, because it's just, you know, I don't know, it just was, it can catch you off guard, and it's when it catches you off guard, and then, you know, you don't know if you're being right, and with the wrong people around you, they can make it about their issues and turn it to be about them, and then you start questioning yourself more, because you're thinking, well, maybe I am the problem in the situation, maybe it, you know, and it is it's such a hard concept to wrap your head around.
It is, yeah. And but as I say, the biggest challenge is just making that first step of actually reaching out to somebody, having a conversation, and recognizing that you do need help, and just it's like giving in to the fact that you're vulnerable, you know, as a human being, where we all are, you know.
And I think as men as well, I think we can be quite stubborn in reaching help.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's a lot of pride in that, and I think, but when you do, you make that step, and you'll find the right people in the situation, and you'll recognize the wrong people a lot sooner, and realize the damage you're causing yourself by leaving them in your life. It's you know, they're slowly just draining the life out of you, and if you don't check yourself and make sure that you're, you know, with the right people when you're explaining these things, it can make it a lot worse.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that as well, you know. Maybe it could be family members, could be friends. You just can't let go of that thing, but they can be people that are dragging you under all the time, you know. So just being able to recognize that as much, isn't it, in the modern world?
And really it was through songwriting that I started recognizing that, you know, there is a deeper rooted issue here. And, you know, if I'm like when I was 18, singing songs, writing songs for the first time, I was writing my own experiences, writing on the way they feel, the same way that, you know, some of the more recent songs before my biggest anxiety attack, the lyrics and the things that I was writing about weren't great.
Yeah.
But I wasn't recognizing that, oh, okay, I should be looking at this a bit more, because I'm not okay. And it's, you know, and now I'm reflecting on the songs, I'm like, okay, you know, my subconscious is more aware, and I should trust if I'm writing shit that I'm not aware of, I should be paying more attention to myself and making sure that I'm okay.
Yeah. I always I tell everybody a story about a friend gave me a book years ago called Stop Thinking, Start Living. And it's a very short book, you know, 60 odd pages long, one simple message in it, and it's just learn to just trust your own thoughts. You know, because we are our own worst enemies, you know. And as you say yourself there, when you're writing songs, laying down lyrics, if you're able to recognize the negativity in your own language, then you have to sort of acknowledge that it's coming from a bad place, you know, and you need to understand why, and maybe stop and analyze that, you know.
Totally. That's a wicked little book.
But yeah, look
it's so right.
It is, but it's a God's honest truth, and it's the simplest thing. He says it, and I tell everybody about this book because it's just the most amazing thing. It's just like, if you can actually stop and recognize when you're having a conversation in your own head that is fiction because somebody said something negative to you, or you've had an argument and you've walked away and you're having this argument in your head replaying over and over again, it's fiction. The moment is gone. What's going on in your head is not real, and you have to just stop and recognize that. And if you can stop yourself from thinking and just regurgitating it, you're in a far better place, you know.
That's wicked.
It's mad. So tell me about the new project then. I'm assuming then that did you start songwriting again as a cathartic process coming out of the other side of the anxiety?
Yeah, it was one of those things where it was meant to be a blues record again. Like
Jesus,
originally,
you and the blues. Just give up, boy. Just give up.
I know, man. Make up my mind. No, it was originally it was meant to be just something on the side. Like while RavenEye was still digging deep, I was still in like full RavenEye camp, like blindsided by all like, it's going to work out. Like, got this record. So while we're waiting to find the right company for the record, I'm going to just spend my free time like recording the blues album that I was meant to be recording. And it just originally, like, some of the earlier songs were definitely really rootsy, but then as I started writing more and started putting more songs to Wayne and we started working on it, there was a slightly different vibe going through. And then it was only kind of after August last year. No, sorry, yeah, 2 years ago. Just realized now, last year, yeah, okay, this is what we're talking about. Like the years are gone.
yeah, absolutely.
Weird. It's the August, not last year, but the year before. After that, yes. And then it was October 2019. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Got the dates mixed up in my head now. But yeah, on that August, I think I was started realizing, like, let's dig deeper into writing these songs. Let's get the whole thing finished off. And at that point, there were some rough ideas for songs, but it was all starting to sound a bit more alternative. So then we started looking at the whole picture and started picking out all the songs and put together a list of the tracks. So we're like, right, this is record worthy. It had a completely different shade and a completely different color. And then in my head, I started going, well, what am I going to do now? Because it's not a blues record. I don't really want to do a band again, because the heart's of RavenEye, but I'm hesitant to really do the whole band thing again. But it's not blues, but it's me. So then I started figuring out, well, then it needs to be under a name, but it's still me. And especially with these songs, it still feels very autobiographical. Like it's a very, honest record about, all the things in my headspace and kind of making peace with it. And also just feeling, just being aware of it. And that's when I started looking at calling it something and putting it together a name. And we thought of a bunch of different names about, what the band could be called, and tried a bunch of different things out. And really, the Dead Collective kind of stuck out for me because it was just something that really was a collective of thoughts that came from when I wish I was, in a, without sounding as dark as it is.
Yeah.
It's more of a humble reminder that, I'm glad that I'm, here and, I'm working on music. And, I really loathed working on music and didn't really want to be involved in it anymore for a period of time, because I feel like, especially when lockdown hit, like still had no money and still had, no security for myself and no home really. And I think at that point I was like, well, what the fuck, sorry, what am I doing this for? Like, I love it, but I've given up a lot for it, and it's not really giving me much back other than, a whole lot of baggage.
Yeah,
so
it's this again, this perception that people have on the outside looking in, thinking that the world of a musician and a rock star is just all, unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah,
and
well,
it's fake.
It's not. A friend was actually my partner. She was joking. We looked at my net worth, and my net worth is supposedly is 4 million on the internet.
Well, can I have that tenner back, Ollie? Then,
yeah, right. I want to speak to me because I want to know this ex Oli Brown is.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of money hanging about, and
yeah,
and I think at that point, yeah, it was. So I was hesitant to really do any to it. Yeah, I was nervous to the band thing, but the Dead Collective just felt right. It felt like it was, in terms of the content of the band, it's not that all my thoughts now are going to be from that time and that the songs I write, but that's where it was all inspired from, and that's why it's called the Dead Collective. And and that's, the songs, like, it's a heavy record. It's I'd say it's like 60% on the verge of in the vein of RavenEye and 40% me. So it's still got a lot of rock and alternative elements on it. It's not quite as all out in your face. It's more gravity in the lyrics and gravity in the stories of the songs. So there's a lot more dynamic between it, and a lot of brutal honesty. But the intention is that it's quite diverse in its sound. So while the main band is going to be, is a 4-piece, and it's going to be the rockier show, like the louder thing, I'm also planning on doing acoustic strings as well. So one of the songs I've already recorded with a great string player called Joe Quayle,
Yeah,
And
I've got press from about Jo in the past. Is she a cello player, is she?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
she's amazing. And we talked about this one song, "Haunted," which is really this kind of the pinnacle song, which made me want to start the Dead Collective and make this into something else.
Mm.
And I wanted to work on a bunch of different versions with her. So we're working together on a few different alternative versions of these songs, so that essentially one of the Dead Collectors got its full electric tour. After that, I can do an acoustic / string tour and go and do churches and
Just milk it as
do
much as you can.
absolutely.
And when are you hoping to have this sort of stuff released?
Well, that's what we're discussing now. So we're currently like just talking to a few labels, working out options, and figuring out the right release plan. Because at this point, doors are still a bit tentative. Like, you know, obviously COVID restrictions are really beginning to ease up, so it feels a bit more realistic. I've been really protective for my own headspace, I guess, to make sure not to commit too much until I know that I can tour again, because we already pushed back. Even with RavenEye, we pushed back a lot of dates and kept having to push back shows.
Yeah,
and that was just. And I don't want to disappoint people. I get that bands want to tour, but it's just, especially like, not so much now, it's fine now, but like on the earlier times, the bands are having to pull tours all the time. I'm like,
well, it's still so messy out there. You know, I can't wrap my head around it, because we all feel like we're in a better place now, especially the UK with restrictions. But you know, the amount of international bands that are still dropping tours, it's crazy.
Yeah, and it just feels so disappointing for people that want to go and see a gig, and it's like you pay your tickets and then the band cancel because there's a COVID restriction. I was like, I'm just gonna wait. So we're shopping around now. I'm still balancing, so we've been doing a lot of producing recently, because I love producing. I think to kind of get myself out of the headspace of my own music, I started working more with other artists and kind of wanting to take care of other artists and like help produce their music. So I love mixing and producing. It's my other passion. And then a jewelry business that I started in lockdown that kind of just started completely kicked off. It was meant to be a side project, but now it's doing really well. It's doing really well. So I'm like, well, okay.
Any cock rings?
Sorry?
Any cock rings?
Yeah. I get one especially done for you.
Sweet. I'll send it to the measurements. I actually bumped into a bunch of guys at Bloodstock that you produced, the Howling Tides.
Oh, sick! Yeah,
nice bunch of lads. They're
really wicked, man.
Yeah,
they're wicked. I remember because when we did our Nova tour, when RavenEye had our Nova tour, we wanted to get loads of indie bands to support. So we had the main support, just Scam, which were wicked, but we said we want to do a first of 3 where we bring out a new band in that area, and so we handpicked them all, which was wicked, because I remember making the poster for it all, and it had like just tons of bands on the poster. And they were, at that point, they were called Anonymous. And I remember seeing them. It was at Stoke-on-Trent. I'm saying I remember, and then I'm forgetting the venue. I think it was Stoke-on-Trent. I remember seeing them, not the venue though. And they just were epic. They were amazing then. And then obviously they changed the name to the Howling Tides, and I kept an eye on them. And then they said that they were in the studio, Superfly studio, where I work and produce the bands. And they said that they would just record the record. And I said, look, do you want someone to mix it? I'd love to, pitch to mix the record for you. And they're like, yeah, let's give it a go. And I ended up mixing their EP, and it was a pleasure to do. Like, they're wicked lads, and they're slamming songs. Like, they're proper monstrous band.
Yeah, it's great to see. There's a lot of talent out there. That's one thing I've noticed as well from doing the likes of the Metal of the Masses in Northern Ireland. We have a rich pool of talent here, especially, which some of us get across the water to stretch our legs, but there's still this divide, unfortunately, really, between the UK and Ireland, North and South, that we need to try and bridge a little bit better to get that thing
we need
working.
To get cheaper bloody ferry rides, man. They're just like...
Yeah, it's getting worse. It's not going to get any better.
No, it's so expensive. Like, I think that was one thing, like RavenEye, we really made an effort to make sure that we'd, cross over as often as we could, because we were like, well, it's a wicked market and we want to be touring as much as possible, but like we'd always end up losing money going over, because it's just the expenses of taking a van, a long wheelbase Sprinter, and all of a sudden the van is like just a fortune on those ferries. It's just
what sort of money, out of curiosity, what sort of money was it?
It was like, I think it was like 380 for us.
I remember talking to Tyler Bryant. He was he played Dublin supporting Aerosmith, and he had a tour bus. So I was talking to the tour manager, and he said to me, only reason we're here is because of the Aerosmith gig. Says like that's covering the cost of everything. Says, you know, like it's like £1,000 for the bus, you know, they come in the ferry. So he played the like 10 people in Voodoo in Belfast, but you know, he had a free night, so why not, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's silly money. It's silly money crossing over, but you got to, like, you know, we want to, you know, it's, you know,
But that is the challenge again. As I remember being in your dressing room and Diamond and Ballymena, and your man had all the prices up on the wall of what it was costing to have you guys there. You know, it's the reality of this business, and you know, selling music now, it doesn't pay the bills. You know, it's all streaming.
No, it's yeah. I mean, streaming's just bullshit. Anyway, I think it's appalling. I think the pay for artists, but you know, it's disheartening. Like, it was like when you see, I completely appreciate Neil Young's stance on pulling out because of Joe Rogan, you know, having a certain narrative and then wanting to kind of make their statement against Spotify to stop that, but they're not doing anything like that to make sure that people are getting better pay, or, you know, all the musicians and all the you know, they clearly have the power to make a difference because, you know, Spotify reacted and Joe Rogan reacted and said, okay, I'll bring other people alternate opinions. I'm staying out of that whole debate. I'm not interested in that debate, but it's more frustrating when you're seeing these artists clearly have the power to make a difference in terms of actually these streaming platforms paying developing bands properly, but they're not doing it. They don't care.
What do you think the alternative is for modern day artists? Like, because I'm always amazed, and I always ask myself the question is like, why aren't people self-releasing, and you know, and why are people not buying from bands directly rather than going through labels or going through these platforms?
Yeah, well, the advice that I'm giving to people at the moment, like, because there's a few bands that we're working with, I'm saying like, you don't rush to get it on streaming platforms straight away. Like, do your release, do a physical release and do a digital release. Like, Bandcamp's really good for that, but don't put it on streaming platforms at least for a month. Let your audience that want to pay money, or let people that want to hear the music, give them a chance to pay for it and support you. And then, because it'll show that you have that it means something to you, that there's a value to it, there's a difference. So you don't have to get on the streaming platform straight away. You know, reality for independent bands, stuff like that, is that the charting thing, it's irrelevant anyway. Really, you need that influx of money to get you to be able to reinvest into the band. So a lot of what I'm saying now is don't rush to. No one's gonna. Anyone can get anything on Spotify. It's not like it's a big fee. So just wait, push, like, pick your release date, and then a month later, then put the release date on streamings. But reiterate the message of how important it is to support the band, which is why you've not put it out on Spotify straight away. You want to avoid streaming platforms for the first month. You know. Don't even say we're going to put it out on streaming platforms. Just say, you know, we're currently staying away from streaming platforms so we can, you know, make the sales direct from us to you. So it's something that I'm really advocate for now, and I've been advising bands because I don't think you should be giving it away to streaming platforms straight away.
Yeah, for sure. I was at a conference one time, Waterbear College. We're over across in Northern Ireland doing talks, and there was a guy who was like a social media guru whose name's popped out of my head, and he was talking about an artist who again's popped out of my head, based in London, a young girl, but she literally gives all of her music away for free, and always has done, has never charged for her music, but her fan base is so invested in her that she makes everything from merch sales and stuff like that there, you know, and you know, whether it be merch at live shows, but even just merch online all year round, like people just constantly invest in her because they buy into her as a musician, as an individual, you know. So yeah, there's got to be alternative options for individuals, you know. I can't figure out what the best route is these days. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's you kind of almost got to treat your music as your advertising platform, and then like bringing people in, like offering packages, like offering unique things to people, like t-shirts, and keeping new designs coming, keeping limited edition items as well, so that people know they're getting something unique. So then you can roll out things more often as well. So doing more unique designs, but not printing 100 of each size, printing, you know, 5 of each side. There's only 5 of these available. Then you've sold those out. You know, you've got your you know, your quota, and you've sold those out, and then you're right, let's get the next design out rolling. And I think, you know, it's hard now because it does feel like music as a whole, the value of music isn't high anymore. It isn't, because people get it for free. Everyone goes on Spotify or YouTube, you know, or your streaming platforms and things. So there's no real value in music in terms of bringing you, you know, cash in. It's going to be, you know, vinyl sells. You can't stream a vinyl, so it's vinyls. But the vinyl production is obscene right now. There's like a 9-month waiting list now for vinyl. So then, which
blame Adele.
Yeah, I know. She's blocked them all up, but you got to find other platforms and offering unique things. And I know some people do the Patreon thing, but Patreon is a tough one because the people that have made Patreon work are the ones that have started, made their foundations for Patreon. I've seen people dipping their toes in Patreon and then starting to do this thing, but it doesn't quite work like that. I've not seen anyone really pull off the Patreon thing by jumping on the bandwagon later. It's the successful Patreons are the ones that have rooted their kind of foundations from it.
I think it's very much the same in most social media platforms, or like especially YouTube and stuff like that. If it's a long haul, it's a very rare thing that it happens immediately for you. So you just got to start and obviously graft at it and work it like everything else. But it's, again, how much time do you want to dedicate to these things, because it is so time consuming.
It's 24 hours.
Yeah, if you want to be an artist and a creative musician, like, you can't be spending your life frigging doing TikToks. And I know you're not a good dancer anyway, so.
Yeah, no, I'm a great dancer. No, I mean, I started. Well, in lockdown, I started doing a thing called the Guitar Tribe, where it was like an educational guitar group, and I absolutely loved doing it, and it was wicked. And I had loads of tablets now, loads of videos made, and I started doing courses, like live streams, showing my screen, showing how I mix stuff, how I approach stuff. And my intention was to be still doing that now, but sadly my mental health just went completely screwed up. So I was like, I actually can't even, for a long while I didn't pick up a guitar again because I just didn't want to even look at it really. And so I think I am planning to go back to the Guitar Tribe to offer more. It won't be as intense as I originally had planned, because I wrote a whole vocal course as well to give people a prep. And so I did this whole PDF of how to prepare for singing, how to prepare for the studio versus live, and did a whole thing and a 20-minute video explaining it all. And I'd like to do them again, but I think in my own time and a bit more manageable. And originally it was to really sort out finances, because there was a bit real panic for me about figuring out, what can I do that's, that I can bring finances in that feels like I'm still contributing to my music rather than my music going to the sidelines.
Yeah. I know. Like, again, I've talked to so many musicians over the past while, and the reality check of when the lockdown came in and all of a sudden the touring wasn't there, because as we discussed, there's just no money coming from the music, unfortunately. So yeah, it's like a fire sale, people getting rid of stuff or just looking at other directions and other ways to bring revenue streams in. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, it's like the bands make money is from touring, and it's from your merch. It's never from the gig fees. Like, the gig fees are always they're okay, but it's merchandise where you make your money.
Yeah.
That's why you try, you make your merchandise stall attractive. You print, you use good quality t-shirts. You don't just print on the crappiest low quality Gildan t-shirts. You pick like a nicer fabric, and look like you care about what you're giving people to buy. So it's such an important thing, but when that's gone, you haven't got those kind of influxes anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And just speaking of, very finally, one last thing about the new project, you have your first live gigs coming up soon.
That's right, yeah. On April the 8th, we're playing at Steelhouse, the Dead Collective. It's like a Steelhouse away day in Wales, and I can't wait for it. They're wicked guys, the Steelhouse crew. They've been supporters of me way back in the ex Oli Brown days.
Yeah, ex Oli Brown.
And then playing Heretic Fest on May the 13th as well, which is like this with a wicked lineup, and it's a wicked festival to be playing. There's a lot of wicked bands on that. So
yeah, well, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing the new music, to see what direction it's all gone, and see the evolution of the artist.
I'm really excited about it. I really can't wait. I think it's been on the silence for quite some time, and I think to finish mixing it with Wayne, and to kind of sit with it and hear it and kind of feel like, one, I made closure with some things by finishing the album. Also, it's really excited. It's made me excited about music again, and made me want to kind of dig my teeth in and really make this work again. Yeah, well, congratulations. I'm glad to see you're back on the scene, and hopefully it'll all go smoothly in 2022. We can't promise anything. 2022 is like 2020 version 3.0 at this stage, but we'll just cross our fingers and hope that we have a semi-normal year. Yeah,
war in Europe,
already kind of looking a bit.
Yeah, it's a bit foobar already, but sure, what can you do? Out of our hands, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, thank you very much for your time today. Absolute pleasure talking to you and catching up with you again.
No, dude, it's wicked seeing you again, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hang out with you in person again.
Yeah, I know you're so lucky knowing me. It's such a pleasure for you. Ladies and gents, just once again, absolute pleasure talking to the fantabulous Mr. Oli Brown. New project on the go, Oli Brown, the Dead Collective, playing Heretic Fest and Steelhouse coming soon. So keep your eyes out for that, folks. Oli, absolute pleasure, man. Great to see you once again.
Pleasure, dude. Thanks so much.
No problem. Catch you later, dude. Thanks again, Oli. Look after yourself. Take care.